So welcome back, Mr. Ohio Jones. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, great to be here.
So the great week for TTI. Of course, we had all the great interviews and the podcast, and we're not really going to get much into that whole thing, but the American Treasure podcast really had me rethink my solve for the Appalachian Footpath Box, and I wanted to bounce this off of you and test some of my thoughts, because Little Rock Pond, I was not team LRP, and I'm not 100% convinced yet, but I wanted to figure it out myself. I wanted to figure out and see if I can line things up, not just the trail, because I'd hate to just jump on the trail. It's a far hike for me to go, and just because that's what everybody thinks, I want to understand it. What are your thoughts on that? Has the interview changed your mind at all?
Yeah. It's out of a similar position to where I'm like, oh man, do I have to eat my words now about this? And for me, it's the 3 different ways thing, because let's say the trail match is away. If you could find any of the other 2 ways and they point you to Little Rock Pond, I think it's no doubt, right?
Yeah. Because he had said, he goes, the Appalachian Trail is going to get you pretty close. That does not mean it's 10 feet off the trail. He used the Appalachian Trail to narrow it down, and it is relative to the Appalachian Trail. And he says there are other trails off the Appalachian Trail. And he says, I think that people already discovered at least one trail that became very popular off the Appalachian Trail based on my map. So I think it is safe to assume he's referring to LRP.
Yeah, for me, it's no doubt that that's what he's talking about.
So then he goes on to say, though, in typical JCB style, so there's definitely other trails off the Appalachian Trail, and then he chuckles and leaves it at that. So to me, it's not a nail in the coffin saying this is what it is. It is as close as he's ever gotten, in my opinion, to confirming something. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because right before that, I think leading up to that part, he says, I knew it was going to be, I'm paraphrasing, so it might be the exact quote, but I knew it was going to be, I was going to put it somewhere along the Appalachian Trail. And then he says, well, but there are other ones that are off the trail. And I think some people have found one of those kind of popular. So it seemed like leading up to him referring to Little Rock Pond, he was almost saying, to me, the way I heard it was along meant literally the Appalachian Trail. And then he goes on to say, well, there are other trails that are off of the Appalachian Trail. So I don't know that he really clarified it at all, but it was kind of interesting how he's, at least how I heard it, he started with along, meaning specifically, and then went on to say, well, there are other trails off of the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
did you hear it that way, or am I mistaken?
Yeah. I had to re-listen to it because my mind immediately jumps. When I hear something super exciting, I have to process it. If not, I'm going to end up misquoting what he said because I'm already pushing what I want to hear through it because of the excitement. So I had to so that's why I sort of, wrote down some notes off of it, so I wouldn't misrepresent what was said. Regardless, at first I was like, oh, so it is on, that was the trail he's referring to, and he's talking about it. But then after I re-listened to it and I heard him chuckle. So, I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to sort of go through this solve and see if I can match up something that would make sense to the trail. So I did do like an overlay on it. So I use CalTopo map as my reference map because it was easy to superimpose and change the opacity of the other map so it lines up. So yes, it does line up quite well. And then I trace the distances from each trailhead depending on which way you went to that area. And they're within the parameters of the 3 mile from road, or where you're parked, would be considered that as well. So I was like, okay, I need to do some deep diving on this. And I started to look at some of the pictograms, and I got 3 of them that could be a possibility. And I wanted to share my thoughts with you on it. I think I have, let's see if I have, okay. So we have the bear and the rocks. So what is your initial take on this picture?
This one for me, I didn't know if it was an actual landmark or could it be a play on words like bear, B-E-A-R versus B-A-R-E is kind of always, and is it rocks? Could it be stones? So that's kind of how I thought of this. And also with this one, there's 2 components to this symbol, right? There's a bear and also rocks. I kind of think people have by default assumed that it's all one symbol.
Right.
Instead of maybe 2 separate things next to each other.
But go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as what specifically it is, though, that, I don't know, landmark is kind of what my instinct was in the beginning.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this meaning little rock? You have the bigger rocks down to the smaller. It's by a bear. The bear is bigger than the rocks. Little rock. Could that be, or just, let's even just look at the rocks itself. I'm like I said, I'm trying to see if I can logically call out this as being Little Rock based on, because he said there's 3 ways we can solve this. So you could use the trail. That would be one way, I would think. Then you can use the pictograms, which is another, and then you can use the sort of the text that's in there, like the Car North, the AT, and then the high point and the numbers of elevation and things like that. So I'm looking at the rocks. I'm saying this could, in my mind, logically or realistically, be a Little Rock. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, because they are in generally descending order, right? The smaller ones are at the bottom. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a bad thought, I don't think. And then the bear, though. Yeah, I was just asking, okay, so I understand the rock kind of descending order, Little Rock, and then how did you associate the bear? You're just saying that the bear is larger than rocks in general.
Well, that was my initial, but I think I could still fit it in there if we just focus on the rocks. Because, to me, it stood out that the rocks could be Little Rock. I mean, they're small rocks around it. Because at first I'm like pebbles, boulders to pebbles, and a lot of iterations of it. But again, I'm trying to match up if something could realistically represent Little Rock, or that trail.
Yeah, so the bear is kind of for scale to understand the size.
Could be for scale, or I think I could also use it in another, because I'm going to walk through these pictograms with you.
Got it. Yeah, I understand that, because I also have seen other people online just kind of refer to the arrangement of the rocks, which is it's not a pile. They are arranged in kind of a particular fashion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, interesting for sure. I like that one.
Okay. So then we go to, let's see which one I want to go to next. Then we have this. So this I interpret for the sake of this discussion, this being a scroll. So that would mean you're scrolling up the path, right? Or scroll up the scroll up the path, and then you're going to go to the next one, which is these. I got a high definition picture of this. I found, and I was able to zoom in on it, and it looked like two arrows, one upon the other. Okay. I know it's really hard to see, but if you use one of the high definition photos of it, you can see that one is overlapping, right? So I took it as upon, because one upon the other. So if you add that to the scroll, and then the rocks, I got scroll upon Little Rock Pond. What do you think?
I like the scroll part. The pushback I would have on the part with the arrows is the high definition and how much, like, would he anticipate people using something other than just like a magnifying glass? Maybe like how much do you have to zoom in on an image? Like what's reasonable, I guess, kind of.
That's fair.
More of a larger question for the map in general, I guess. Like at what point does the zoom factor say like, okay, we've zoomed in a little too much here?
No, that's fair. That's fair. And I thought I approached that also when I originally, one of my first videos, I was going deep dive into it. I'm like, wait a minute, if you can't see this on the thing on your book, then it's not going to be in play for me, at least. But if I think if you look at it enough, magnifying glass, maybe you can see one thing is upon the other. And I guess for the sake of what I think it is, I think it's just representing something is upon the other thing. So it wouldn't matter what it was.
Yeah, and it's in keeping with his noticing the details, kind of, right?
Right. So I got scroll upon Little Rock, and then maybe the bear could then have a double meaning from what we talked about. It could be keep walking or walk, follow, because if you go to the map, it lining it up, it sort of goes up over to the towards the end of that trail. Now, I don't think the placement of the pictograms are necessarily have to be where you're doing, like it doesn't necessarily all have to be in a certain order, because he did say that there are three different ways of interpreting it. One, and I didn't write down exactly what he said, but he did say one of the ways, a little harder, but you can do it. So, I think if you can interpret all the pictograms, you could possibly, you can come up with the right location. I don't know. I haven't dug into all the pictograms, and to me, that seems really, really hard. I'm trying to shoot for the easiest one that I think is the easiest first, and go with that. So, and then picking different parts of the pictograms, to try to match that up, because those are the only three pictograms that I've so far associated with it. Because I don't know if you're using the trail, I don't know if you need all those pictograms. I would like to be able to match them all up, but he said there's three ways, so I should be able to. I'm just using it as a confirmer, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and like you were talking about the three different ways, and then each one of the ways leads to a different search size area.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe Little Rock Pond leads to, like, let's say the trail match at Little Rock Pond, what we're talking about here. What if that leads to like the largest, and the other two ways are kind of more specific.
That could be that very much well could be. That's why moving forward, I'm going to take this approach with this solve, right? I'm going to try to confirm for myself to justify a trip out there, that I can at least use the pictograms to match the trail, and then any other items on there. If I get enough, and it's going to take more than what we're sharing today, of course. I've only just begun on this, right? If I could get enough things on here to reasonably fit into that area, then I'm going to be convinced on this, you know.
How convinced are you now? I mean, if you'd say a 1 through 10, I guess, that the dash line on the map does match to Little Rock Pond.
I'm probably at a 7. You know, to put it in context, what that means is I need at least a 9, 8 or a 9, 8.5 to go boots on the ground. If it's, you know, this distance.
Yes, this is like the largest piece of evidence, kind of, right? And you just need that other confirming factor.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson from my 2 previous solves, because, you know, that my second one, the one we went to Pennsylvania, I went, it was like 90% from the text. You could tell the disappointment I had. I mean, you can imagine the disappointment I had when I heard all you need is a map, and my wife was like, you know, she was smiling, because when I first showed her, when I first told her about Little Rock Pond and showed her the picture, she's like, why the heck are you looking at the text anymore? This is the map, you know. She wants to go boots on the ground now. I said, okay. If I had a ton of extra time from work, I would definitely do it. But now it seems a little, you know, I have to be a little more choosy on when I go. So I want to make sure I have enough to convince me, to push me to that 8, strong 8.5 of confidence to go out there.
Right. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about all that obsessing over the word blue in the text.
I know. And now we have to think about something else, because I wasn't convinced about the coins, and boy, was I wrong. You know, again, I you know, this is why we really have to have an open mind going on this. And I learned a very valuable lesson, because all this time since I got the book, I did not consider the coins at all in play. I thought there was some type of, you know, mechanical movement or something on the box, and I just didn't. Now, what they represent, I don't know. And I will be using that in future videos and applying the coin to this. I'm all in on this. You're not going to pull me off of this one. You know, this and the Forrest Fenn one, I think, are going to be the ones that I'm going to be focusing on, and the lion's share, of course. That one, I think my wife is leading that one. You know, she's after our interview, she's got, her confidence level has gone up quite a bit, and she's wanting to do a boots on the ground next summer.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to really be digging deep into that on our weekly ones. Now, she may not make this one because she's in India right now, but and I don't know what her web connection. I did a test call with her earlier, and you know, to see if it worked and stuff. But yeah, what do you think about the coin?
It became, and we've discussed this in the past, is how it factors into your solve when we use it. And I think, for better or worse, we both kind of said, like, we don't think about it too much, and it turns out you should probably be thinking about it a bit more. Like almost no text now. The quote is because his mom likes Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I think it was.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that I was focused on thinking may be important, not so much. And then the coin, which I paid basically no attention to, seems like it's going to be pretty important for every single smaller box.
Yeah. Now, how they play into it, are they the same for each one? I'm not even going to worry about that, because that's going to distract me from this. This and the Forest Fen I'll look at independently. And thank goodness, it could also point to the lion's share in the end, but there's enough stuff in the chapter, and he's made it pretty darn clear that there a single clue or a set of clues that will take you to a pretty exact spot to look. So that's a whole other video. But I do want to share another picture. So he had said, and I don't have it in my notes right now, so I will have to paraphrase what he said. This picture here, which is above the bears and the rocks. So he said there was some things in the map that weren't drawn, or what did he else say? There are two different things. He said, it wasn't drawn by him and it wasn't drawn by AI.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Yeah. So that the first thing I thought about was this part. I know there's a whole ton of other things that it could be. And I'll probably address other things too, but this seemed really odd to me how it was placed in there. It didn't look like a pictogram. It didn't look like a drawing. It didn't look like an AI generated image. To me, this looked like a picture that he embedded and then used, maybe some other means to modify it. And I think that would still fit into the AI didn't draw it and I didn't draw it or put it in there, because the original picture, I think it was a picture that he took and placed it on the map as a maybe, since it is so hard to figure out, that it is right by where the location's at. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to ask you how you interpreted what he said there about wasn't drawn by him, wasn't drawn by AI. And I think your answer is great. That's something I hadn't considered. I was thinking, well, then what is it? And yeah, I really like where you're going with this, because this is one of the main things I want to talk to you about. And so, yeah, I love the track that you're on, because I didn't know where to begin, but I knew that when he said that, it was important.
Yeah, I took it immediately as, and this is how I'm going to treat it until until I come across something else. But there's a picture in here, because if he didn't draw it and AI didn't draw it, what else is it then?
Yeah,
it's a picture, right? He took a photo and he put it in there, because when he taught, and what triggered that for me was picture. He used a picture in Pokemon Box, a literal picture, which blew my mind. I thought that was something he generated or AI generated, but that's literally a picture. So, these interviews really clarified. I didn't look at them as necessarily clues, but clarifications. And everybody could interpret it differently, but how I think about things is I need a better understanding of things. Sometimes I need things explained to me a lot more to understand them. A little slow to pick up on things, but once I do, then once I'm comfortable with the understanding of something, or at least my understanding of it, that'll allow me to put break a lot of walls down and helps me focus on something. And to me, it worked. That was all I needed to move forward and start looking at this in another way. Because, when you look at something for such a long time and you're just so set on that's the way it is. And I needed something to break me from that train of thought. And that was what break my train of thought. So I could comfortably open my mind and look at it from a different way. So, that helped out a lot. And I'm thinking there is a picture embedded. Now it could be in the outer perimeter. It could be in there, and just the opacity is so low we're not able to see it yet. But after a while, it could be, coming out. I don't know. This is like this whole new revelation of, attempting this solve. Do you feel the same way, or are you still sort of working off of what you've already found?
Well, I'm definitely looking at it differently for sure. And I like that the picture thing I would love to follow a bit further. And then even just some of the other things that I was maybe more dismissive about in the beginning, I'm forced to kind of have to reconsider now. The page border and things like that, like the map border. Maybe there are other things in there that I hadn't realized at first.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Right. Well, not any less confident. When I was telling someone at the meet and greet, I said, the great thing about this is that everybody's wrong except the person who ultimately finds it.
Right.
Like, nobody's an expert. So, hey, new interview, I get the shift. You always get to change your opinion,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's humbling, it's quite humbling. But this is part of the excitement of it. Right. And finding new things. And actually I was just thinking as I glanced over, the picture could be behind the map. I don't know. I don't want to go on a rabbit hole in this video, but
it also
it looks so real around the map. Like it looks so real.
To play devil's advocate against myself, what I said earlier about your arrow thing and how far do you have to look in, like, well, picture embedded, I mean, that's kind of difficult to find too. And how do you get that out of there and get a clue from it? So maybe parts of the map, you are supposed to zoom a little further than I had thought as well. Like manipulation,
I'm still going that you have to use a book version of it. I think that was his original intent. And, so, but as far as my upon thing with those two things, man, I had that revelation last night. I'm laying there sleeping out, half asleep and in and out of sleep. And I thought, I was like, wait a minute, upon, and I looked at my phone, I looked at that picture again, and I got my phone out and did my voice notes, and I was listening to it before we hopped on a call. And I'm like, man, I sound like whacked out, halfway tired. So I wouldn't forget it, because there's times where I've had a thought and just went back to bed and totally forgot what it was all about. And I had a great feeling about it. And it may not seem like much to a lot of people. They're like, yeah, where did you get that from or whatever. But to me personally, like, that was probably one of my top 3 things in this whole book, this whole experience that I was my aha moment. I would have to say it was up there pretty high.
Yeah, I like the wordplay stuff with the pictures. I feel like that I forget, there's a name for that, right? Kind of like,
yeah.
I don't know what the name for it is,
yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one of those in the map.
Yeah. And that with the little rock, I mean, that was another thing. It's like, I've never, I don't usually think that way. I don't do a lot of these. And as I'm doing more, I'm learning more, and I'm going to have some, but I'm hopefully one of our viewers It owns a escape room. I'm going to have her on, and we're going to talk about that wordplay and how that works, because there's a lot to be said about people that think that way. And I have to sort of train myself to think that way. And it was exciting when, even if it's wrong, I was able to pick up something like that. At least now if I ever go to escape room, I'll be like, I got an edge up now.
Yeah. And what do you, I forget what interview it was in, but in one of the interviews he did recently, he said, I think a lot of people out there think that after the first one solved, they're going to know how my brain works and the other ones would be easier. And I wouldn't be so sure about that, or something to that effect. Do you remember him saying that?
Yeah, I do.
How do you take that?
Yeah. I mean, I think he did all these differently, individual ones differently. And what makes me think that is he was talking, man, there's so many interviews. I can't think of which one it was, but he says he thinks ahead. I think it was with Treasure Hunt with Us. He's always thinking ahead why he doesn't give out certain answers, because if it could lead to something else. He's smart. He's ahead of the game. I'm thinking he already anticipated what types of questions would be asked, and then based any type of answers off that, because that's how you stop yourself from slipping up. He's not going to give certain information away, because then it could lead to other things once something's found later on, where what I'm saying is it may not be valuable now, but in the future, if a certain amount of boxes are found, I think it was when Emma asked about the elevations and put them in order. It's like, well, yeah, if you get 2 of those, then you can through process of elimination figure out where the other ones are. So I think each chapter box is set up differently. I think each chapter box has a different way of solving it. So if say this one's found first and we figure out what everything stands for, we're not going to be able to go to Pokemon or Forest Fen and apply that same reasoning. And I think that's why he didn't use the text, because he said you have on our interview, he said on the, and that's why I kept asking him, and I followed up with, so theoretically, if you didn't have the chapter, you could just pretty much will solve it from the map. And he's like, yeah. And he said, now the past and future, you focus on the games, but he contradicted himself, because when Treasure Hunt with Us asked him this before, around 6 months ago or whatever, he's like, well, there is a chapter as well. But now he's saying, focus on the games, the Forest Fen, focus on the poems. Do you know that blew all my work out of the water? Like, but you know what? I had another revelation last night. This is what happens when my wife leaves out of town. I have a new way of looking at this poem that is probably bigger than my revelations on this map. And I have to shift gears and dig into it a little more and test it out. But when he said that it's circular, more circular, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think he means, and then he said, well, I would tell you, but you wouldn't believe me after that anyway, or something to that effect. I think I figured out what he meant by that. And I don't know. I'm not confident enough or know enough yet that I can explain it. But when I do, we will drop video and I will walk through it, and you're going to see it's very similar in a way that we're looking at these, but a bit of wordplay inside the poem. when he says circular. So there's ways that you can match up certain items in different stanzas to relate to the other stanzas. And that's a really, really high level of explanation of it, though. So once I hone this down, and that's why I said this in the Forrest Fenn one, because Forrest Fenn one, a lot of it intimidating to me was all that reading on it. It's like, there's so much. I'm so glad Laura's doing this Lion Share with me, because she's a reader. I can read, don't get me wrong, but when it's digesting a lot of information, a lot of text, is really hard for me. That's cryptic, right? I can read books and everything, but there's just so much information. So in that poem, and I don't want to get off topic, I believe there's a way of knowing what everything is, even, once was brown and everything. It's all I think it's all in the poem. I think we're able to know where warm water halts, cool water flows. All that is in the poem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'm interested for that too, because I think the Forrest Fenn box is cool. Because it's kind of similar to the AT box. It's more like a West Coast AT box, and that it's not a map. I get it's a poem, but it's kind of more, you have to follow instructions to get there in a similar way that you would with a map.
And it's all embedded in that poem. I am very, very excited about that. But and this is not like some cheap way of getting a teaser in for another video, but I am really excited about it. Like, I'm as excited about Forrest Fenn now as I am about Appalachian Footpath Box. So
so much good news this week that it energized, I think, everybody who's looking for any box.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting. And I can't wait to hear Jenny Kile's up in Little Rock Pond now. She had posted some pictures of higher elevations, ton of snow, lower elevations, there's not, but her and her husband went out there, and I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure that after the recent interviews of people who are local and have already been looking that area are hitting it harder.
But but I think what's important though, is to make sure you have more than just that, unless you already know, right? And then by all means, who am I to tell you what to do? But at least for me, I need a little more confirmation first, because my time is very limited, and I want to make sure that I'm using the best of my time, because it's like in poker when you go on tilt, right? I don't want to go on tilt on this, right? I don't want to just start throwing bets left and right, hoping that I'm going to hit something. And I have a tendency to do that. I can do that. And I don't want to do that with this. I want to take a smart, calculated approach to this and make sure I totally understand it before I do that.
Right, because sometimes the excitement takes hold, and that's when you go on tilt, so to speak. So it's more of taking a measured approach to things. Yeah. The excitement's great, but I temper it, I guess, or curb your enthusiasm, so to speak.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stay away from casinos by myself. Although I did go out on the meet and greet once, and although the casino took my $100 bill, it did not take my dignity. I walked with my head off. But
there's only 100.
Right. And that's why I cut myself off. But yeah, so what does a skier mean? What does the cat, did you notice he when he said in the American Treasurer, he said, because Dave was doing a great job of pushing him on this. I liked it. I liked it. And when he said it was his white whale one, that was a great analogy. He said, the apples, the bear, he kept referring to the bear. Then John goes, yeah, there's also the cat and the skier. Like, it was good to hear him say the cat. And
yeah, to me, you just start naming things that we've been saying. Is it this or that, or how do you interpret this thing? And he's just like, no, it's a skier.
Yeah, because it could be mountain lion. It could be, I think, TTI Unofficial Podcast a long time ago they're like, what do we call it? Is it a cat or whatever? I think they said that, but I'm pretty sure. I definitely don't want to misquote. But, that when he says a cat, that was big to me. What to do with it, I have no idea. But it was another thing to put in there, as a clarifier for me. And, so there's so much more. I mean, I'm sad that my solves are now, I don't know, probably won't even get any views on videos anymore, but that's fine. I didn't do it for that. As we move forward, I think there's going to be a lot more that's able to come out. Although people have been close within a couple 100 feet of these, does that worry you when he says that?
Well, to me, I take that as, I know that someone's been on the trail, whether it be a side trail or section of trail. It's like, okay, they walked past it. That doesn't mean they got off trail at the exact right spot and searched it. So that's actually another reason why I think Little Rock Pond holds a lot of weight, is because it's such public knowledge that people have walked on trail every inch of that place. So if it were there, it'd be super easy to say someone's been within 200 feet of it.
Yeah, because if you were to take, say 200 feet, right, and you struck a radius, and then you made a circle. I'm not that good at math, so I'm not even going to attempt to do the math in my head, but figure out the area of that circle, and that's how much you have to. You're off by. I mean, 100 feet or 200 feet between, 100 and 200 feet, say even 100 feet, you strike a radius. What's the area of a circle that has 100-foot radius? I don't have my calculator or anything right here now. I'm not going to do it because I'm recording a video, but do it at home. I think, was it pi r squared or something? Yeah. You do that at home, and that's the area you still have to search. And that's saying if that person knew that they were 100 to 200 feet away from it.
And also, he has to throw out a decent number. He can't say someone was within 40 feet if it's literally off of the, like, I know someone walked past it and it's off the trail 40 feet, or everyone's going to know it's only off the trail. It cuts down the search area for every box, probably, basically. Yeah.
And unless his source that he had, somebody shared a picture of where it's at and he knew exactly. I mean, I don't know. But I think what he's going off of, and this is my opinion on it, was that based off of what his people have seen, and possibly even what people shared with Dave. I mean, think about it. Dave's had some people on his podcast, even though he hasn't published it yet. And he could be saying in his conversations, because he still talks to John on a regular basis, say, hey, I heard some guy, some person went ahead and this is their solve, and John's not gonna tip his hat if whether or not it's compelling to him, but he's making a mental note of it. So like I use that statement that he made is this: it could have been me, right? We posted a boots on the ground video. It could be us, the ones that were close. It could be anybody. So, I mean, I'm not going back to Bald, North Carolina to hunt treasure, at least. So if it was me that was close, for the sake of an example, then it doesn't mean anything because I'm not going back. So if the person that was that close to it, or persons that were that close to it, doesn't realize they were that close to it, how helpful is that?
Yeah, that's because my assumption lies on that he's referring to a place that's been mentioned publicly multiple times. Even if it's not Little Rock Pond, there's some places down south there along Tennessee and North Carolina border that have been mentioned several times. Yeah. So if you're talking about a private conversation or an offhand Discord comment, it very well could be at a place that no one has gone back to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's I was watching Golden Greed last night, even though it's not related to this. And, it had me, it was the capstone of the TTI week, after hearing all this information and then watching treasure hunters get all excited about things. It was just a wonderful capstone to it. And that's what got my mind thinking about all this. I grabbed my book, I shut the episode off and start looking at it. And that's, when things start flipping in my head. So it should be pretty exciting, on what happens here coming up.
You think it's going to be an antsy winter for a lot of us?
Yeah. And I hope and pray that nobody gets so excited that they risk their safety and going out somewhere that could possibly have snow on there and ice. And I mean, it's one thing to be in the snow, but when you're out hiking, this is what I learned on my boots on the ground is you have to do an out and back when you hike. And it's easy to do 1 to 2 miles out, especially if it depending on the terrain, if it's primarily downhill. But coming back, you're doing that all over again and you're going uphill. I was dead after I went a mile and a half out back in my most recent one saying, oh, this isn't bad at all. Almost fell a couple times, but whatever. Man, on my way back, my feet were killing me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, especially if you're actually searching. So you do all that work to get there to where you're going. You're off trail. You're searching for a long time. And then you have to hoof it back. Like it's even worse then.
Yeah. And if you go off trail, look, I think even though he didn't clarify how these were hidden, when he said in regards to the past and future, when it's, if you're more over than under than while you're in between or something to that effect. I don't know. I get that the way you said it got me confused. I had to write it down. I have it written down somewhere, but that was a big eye opener, not necessarily for me to that box because I have to totally rethink myself on that one. But that tells me there's a specific way that of course, the specific way he hid the box, but that to me inspires thought on how he hid the box. When he said it wasn't in a hollowed out rock, it wasn't a tree stump, and definitely not in that duffel bag that I found. There's a specific way, and I don't, we talked about going off trail through the brush and everything like that. I don't think that's necessary. I think it's going to be in a spot that's easily accessible. You just have to know the type of, I still think it's a rock structure, where he hit it. It's probably in some convoluted rock structure that's really weird or something, or hard to manage or get on. And there's a method that he hit it that if you look just right, you don't have to reach your hand in some like snake pit or some, I don't know, some exotic animals going to come out and like sever your hand off, or you're not going to pull it out and there's like black widows all over it. It's in a spot where if you look in the correct area of that, say rock formation that normally a passerby wouldn't, then he found it. And hats off to him to finding a spot like that. I mean, he probably had, well, he said he hiked multiple states in the Appalachian Trail. So he's done his recon on it. He knows what he's looking for. He knows the specific spot where he's looking for. Having that in mind, to me, helps. I don't know what it does about you, but to me, that gets me into his frame of thinking, at least.
Yeah, it does. And I have a question then for you about the past and future one and kind of what was said about it recently. So in the book, he alludes to the fact that maybe you could find one of my boxes while on a picnic with your family. what his comments about the Past and Future box recently kind of made me think maybe that's the box he's referring to, because I think he said you can only hide it so many places from people and nature. Wasn't that kind of the back half of what he said?
Yeah,
over under.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I didn't think about that. You know,
again, I'm not focused on it, but it was interesting, I thought.
No, and these are things that, and this is why was so good. Like, I think there are some people that are like, well, I don't want John to come out and give out clues. It's not fair. It's a treasure hunt. We need to find it. I don't think John gave out any what I would consider clues per se. I think they're clarifiers. You know, he didn't say, you know, I don't know. I can't come up with an example without misspeaking on it. But do you know what I'm saying? Maybe clarify a little bit for me.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us a bit more specifics, I guess, is one way that you could put it on certain ones of these. And I guess with the Fenn thing, he came out a couple of times. It's like, no, it really is in this 4 states because it's one of the places that I looked. Oh, and by the way, I never looked in Yellowstone, so it wouldn't be in Yellowstone. Like those sorts of things.
Yeah, maybe I'm contradicting myself then. You know, to me, a clue would be, I don't know. So to me, it would look different, I think. And I can't come up with an example for it. But to me, for this, I think he clarified, because he already told us what he already told us, but he told us in a different way. But I mean, he said in the chapter, all you need is the map.
But what about the 3 distinct ways? Is that a clue?
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. You're right. Maybe I need to backtrack that comment, because we didn't know that. There was no other way of knowing that. That's not a clarification, I don't think. I think that is I think he probably thought, man, people are struggling pretty hard with this, and I'm going to throw everybody a bone. And I do think it was very good. I'm very appreciative of him putting that out to everybody on a newsletter with links to those, something like what Justin Posey does on his website. It's probably easier for John just to send out a newsletter, because there are things in those interviews that people need to know, you know.
Right, to keep competition fair.
Yeah, I think it was fair. It was fair thing to do, and you know, hats off to him for doing that. Because not everybody watches our videos. Not everybody's on Discord. Not everybody's on the internet looking at things, and hats off to them too. I mean, you know, I met some people at the meet and greet and says, well, I don't watch all your videos because I don't want to cloud my judgment. I'm like, well, good for you then, because that's, I think, why my wife has a different advantage that I would. I'm not saying don't watch any of the stuff if it, you know, because I think there are some things on there. I would say limit your stuff that you consume if you feel like you're having problems with it, or if you get distracted easily. You know, I like to just offer a different way of looking at it. I guess what I'm saying is there's a difference between, you know, watching things that are pushing stuff like it's fact, because that's way more distracting than possibly looking for a clarifier. Like when I looked at how I'm looking at this trail and trying to justify its Little Rock Pond, I'm looking for things in here to help me do that, you know. And I mean, I wouldn't have known about the trail if I didn't hear it on Discord or another source. So there is some value to that. But you know, just pick and choose what you hear, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a good balance between forming your own thoughts and then looking at the community. Because if you're almost too heavy in either direction, if you're too much into your own thoughts, you're never challenged, and that's a recipe for confirmation bias. And if you're constantly just looking at Discord and seeing what other people do and hopping on the popular bandwagon, again, that's a recipe for confirmation bias. So I think it's important to have a balance with both.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm creative myself, but also I like to weigh that against what other people have to say and just see where kind of what the community thinks about things.
Yeah, that's very well said. That I think that's a bit of advice I think everybody should take, including myself. I try to limit myself. I'm not too active on it. I do go on Discord and just to check the temperature of everything, but and not to knock Discord, but there is a lot of dialogue outside of that, because it's like a social media, it's like a chat room, right? So to get any, you have to sift through a lot of casual conversations to get a lot of stuff from there. And that can distract you as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of scrolling.
But
I've gotten a lot of good value from it too.
I got a ton of value. I'm not knocking it at all. The way I process things, when I look on the left toolbar and I see like a ton of links, I'm like squirrel, I'm all over the board. And I have to limit that, because for me personally, it doesn't work. I will go on to certain, like I'll click on a certain tab just to check the temp, see what people are talking about. And to me, they're more confirmers of what I'm looking at. I'm not going to, it's going to take me a lot to change my direction. I want to vet out what I have first, I want, because it offers a different approach also to other people. Like when you come on and listen to our videos and stuff, I think you're getting a different perspective. Just like if you go on somebody else's channel, you're going to get a different perspective. Right. And it's already been vetted. Like I think on when you have things in real time, I guess is what I'm saying, it's easier to have like a brainstorming session. Whereas when it makes it to video, it's generally pretty polished, or at least to a point where somebody's ready to share it, and you're getting a different is this a different medium to do it on,
right?
And not to mention, like what you do on your Substack, I know when I read your Substack, I'm going to read a polished version of what you're saying, and it's got my attention. When I go to my email account and I see, OhioJones posted another thing, I'm like, boom, I'm reading it right there, because I can't wait to read it, because it's a thought out thing that you put out there, and it's polished,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that being said, we're approaching our hour mark, and unless you have other things to add, we could probably table this for a next discussion. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, I think now that we don't have plenty more to get at, but we can save it for another time.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack, and I don't want to brain dump in a 5 hour. I mean, I can, and maybe one day I'll do a marathon one on something. It'll be fun. It'll take a hell of a long time to process it on my computer, but anyway, yeah. Thanks again for coming on and talking through this. I think we got a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, it's always great coming on. I love, again, talking out loud with someone always helps.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.